Hi everyone, I'm Bhav and I'm a third-year medical student here, and my story is about hope. So, growing up, I had a very severe speech impediment, a stutter. Every time I would speak, it would sound something like this. Hi, I'm Bhav. And I wasn't able to understand why it sounded like that. I still remember my first day of first grade when the teacher would ask everyone in the classroom to introduce themselves. And I would be sort of waiting for that moment and I actually would have a mental tracker of how many people were in front of me just so that I could raise my hand and ask to use the bathroom just as I was being approached. In fact, it was easier for me to ask to use the bathroom than it was to say my own name. And so that was always a very challenging moment where whenever I would be forced eventually to say my name, I could feel this wall just erecting inside my throat. And it wasn't a physical wall, obviously. It was a self-induced wall, but one that I seemingly had no way of actually going over. And as I grew older, I sort of found my way around all this wall. I had to find ways to either jump over it or zigzag through it. By the 6th grade, I had realized that often I would be able to know exactly which word I was about to say might cause me imminent trouble. And so I would start to actually, after school, memorize the Merriam-Webster thesaurus. And so I learned thousands of synonyms by the end of 6th grade. There was one moment where I was being asked, just as a general thought experiment, Bhav, what's the opposite of red? And I kind of knew that saying opposite would cause a problem. And so I said, well, Mrs. X, I think the antithesis of red is blue. And I'm not sure if she herself knew what that word meant. So I definitely became a very sort of, I think, literate, at least well-thesaurused student by that age. But still, something that was always very striking amidst this journey is whenever I was on my own, I could speak perfectly fluently without any challenge. Even in large groups, much like this one, if I had a speech memorized, which I actually don't have now, this is entirely impromptu, but if I had a speech memorized, I was also able to speak perfectly fluently. Whenever I would sing on stage, which I did a lot of back at that age, I was also able to sing fluently. So I knew all along that there's something that's not adding up here. Why is it that in specific contexts I am able to speak well, whereas the moment either it's an impromptu situation or I'm being somehow put on the spot, I have this wall. I start to get nervous, my hands sweat, my face starts shaking, my hands and feet also start shaking. What is happening here, right? And so I didn't find the answer until much later, but at the end of high school, I was invited to speak at my high school graduation with 4,000 people, and though I thought that this would be an opportune moment for mass humiliation, I somehow again managed to speak fluently because I knew the whole speech. Whereas just an hour earlier in school, I was hardly able to say hi to, or in this case, bye, really, to our teachers. So I chose to study neuroscience back in undergrad because I sort of wanted to understand a bit more about how does the brain work, how does the mind work, what's going on here at a fundamental level that I'm not able to understand. And over the course of studying neuroscience, I learned about this idea of neuroplasticity, or that our minds are actually capable of quite substantial and meaningful change. The way by which you achieve that change is quite variable, but all of us know that, for example, it's quite easy to learn a new language at a very early age, but as we get older, that gets harder and less natural But we're still able to do it. We're able to learn sports. We're able to learn how to walk even after a major brain stroke. So it's long been established that we are able to change certain parts of our brain. Specifically, given that I was able to speak fluently in some but not all contexts, I had to find out more. And so I began to experiment. I tried to sing while I spoke, which did not work out well because I would be in school and I would say, "Yes, my name is Bhav." And while it sounded great, I think it sounded pretty nice. It wasn't a very efficient way of getting my message across. Then I turned to rap. In fact, many of you may know this, but Ed Sheeran had a very severe stutter as well as a child, and he memorized Eminem's full first album. And in doing so, somehow he was actually able to start speaking fluently. And so I would also, try and not obviously, but very subtly wrap my message as well. So then it became, "Yes, my name is Bhav. How are you?" Right? So I became a pretty good musician, but still not a great speaker. And so I hadn't yet solved the fundamental problem. It was only about a year and a half ago, actually, where I met a retired lawyer. He's in his early 80s, by the name of Lee Lovett, that I finally found hope. Lee had been stuttering pretty severely from, as he often says, from age 0, though that's not obviously feasible, but from age 0 to about his early 30s. And he would often share with me the story of his first case in his court after he graduated law school, where he wasn't even able to introduce his own name, let alone his client's name. And so, as maybe all of us expect, his client lost that case hands down. And that was his awakening moment when he realized he had to try and navigate or find a way out of this. And so, much like me, he also tried various things. He also was a great singer and saw that when he spoke differently, he was able to actually speak quite well. And the key message was, so long as one speaks differently from their normal voice or what their brain is used to, it seems like the brain does not give us as much of a problem. And so eventually he sort of realized that if he really focuses well on trying to articulate and pronounce all of his words very, very precisely, if he focused on sort of emphasizing his message and actually trying to engage and connect with the audience rather than thinking of each word and specifically thinking of which word he's about to get stuck on, that also helped him. And so he worked with me for about the first year and a half of medical school. And I'm pretty pleased to say that I think I speak fairly well now. I no longer am worried about obsessing over each word. I sort of really am focused on the message, on the content and substance of what I'm saying. And I'm not having to sing or rap, obviously, but I am able to really sort of focus on how to say my message like I mean it. And that has gone a long way for me. And now as I'm at the end of my third year of medical school, I'm in my last few months of hospital rotations, and I'm on my OB-GYN boards this week. It's an amazing feeling to look at a mother in the eye and actually, say the name of the baby and say that you're now a new mother, right? That's just an amazing feeling that I don't think I would have had just a few years ago. And so I'll just end by saying I'm working with many researchers to understand how we can replicate the same changes that happened in my brain and in Lee's brain, who's now 83, in others. So we've actually now in the last few years helped about 500 really severe stutterers reach either near or perfect fluency. And we're sort of using MRI imaging to map these speech circuits, understand sort of what factors affect fear and anxiety in the brain, and maybe one one day use that as the basis to help treat things like anxiety, OCD, and PTSD. So I'll just end with one final note that all along this journey, I was very, very grateful and lucky that everyone was always willing to listen to me, even when I found it hard to express myself, even when I had no voice. And so as much as one of the messages here should be that we should help others find their voice and give it back even when they don't have it, I want the other message to be about hope, that we might not know what's actually humanly possible until we have exhausted every option. And had I not tried for the last 2 decades of my life, I would not be here on this stage. So thank you so much.
Unlock your voice with StopStutter.